Good morning, you're watching Mirror Now. I'm Sanjana Chauhan. It's our top story of the hour. Passengers travelling in IndiGo Airlines will now have to shell out more money as seats in the airlines are chargeable for web check-in. Now, in its revised web check-in policy, IndiGo will charge for the middle and back seats as well, which were earlier exempted. Now, IndiGo Airlines, however, has justified the move, saying that it is a dynamic decision about pricing for advanced seat selection. They also state that it is a common practice that is followed by airlines across the globe. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Civil Aviation has issued a statement which says that they are reviewing the fares to check if the prices fall within the unbundled pricing framework. And now we have Jitendra Bhargava, aviation expert, joining us on the phone line. Good morning, Mr. Bhargava. Thank you so much for speaking with Mirror Now. If you can actually take us through the details of this, because it appears to be that IndiGo Airlines has come out with a clarification saying that this is not something new or it's not something outlandish that they've actually introduced. So if you can just actually take us through, if you were to dumb it down for us and just let us know what this exactly means and whether this is something that has always been around.
It was about 4 or 5 years ago that the government of India decided to allow airlines to unbundle the fares, which meant that they could be a basic fare and plus they could charge for various services. That happened many years ago. With the result, baggages and all those rules, regulations came in. Now, this was the latest that IndiGo came in. They must have certainly reacted because there has been an outrage on this new policy that they have levied. But I am of the belief that an airline knows what is good for it as per their business model. It is now for the passengers to react whether they must accept it or reject it outright, because in our competitive environment, you have several airlines available to choose from. So if IndiGo believes that with monopoly of 42-43% market share on the domestic part, they can introduce any kind of changes, that's going to be unacceptable. The reality is, all airlines have been suffering when the ATF prices were high. They've, of course, come down in the last 1-2 weeks. But they will be trying to maximize their revenue generation. And this could be one step. Maybe it is something that's going to be rejected by people. But the fact is that IndiGo, in spite of being a low-cost airline, not serving food, and being very restrictive on the various amenities that are offered to passengers, still commands a fare which is as good as full-service legacy carriers like Air India, Jet Airways, and Vistara. So there is something in IndiGo that has made it into a successful airline. So I wouldn't fault it. It is maybe their business model. They may have gone overboard, but we must look at how it unfolds in the next 2 weeks.
Absolutely, Mr. Bhargava, thank you so much for putting that in perspective. This is the latest that's coming in right now. IndiGo will be charging for web check-in of all seats. Now, it is India's largest airline. Now, they will be charging for the web check-in of all seats as carriers continue to look for ways to make up for higher costs, as we heard Mr. Bhargava there saying that. The budget carrier that's been operated said it has revised its policy since November 14th to make all seats selected online chargeable. Now, this will cost anything between 100 to 800 rupees depending on the preference. Meanwhile, we also know that the Civil Aviation Ministry said it has noted that airlines are now charging for web check-in of all seats, and they are reviewing these fees to see whether they fall within the unbundled pricing framework. And now Vipul Saxena, also an aviation expert, joining us on the phone line. Mr. Saxena, thank you so much for speaking with Mirror Now. We saw that earlier passengers paid extra only for some seats, including those along the aisle, window facing, or offering additional legroom if they checked in online. But IndiGo will continue to allocate seats without the extra charge to flyers checking in at the airport and those with corporate bookings.
Hello?
Yes, Mr. Saxena, go ahead.
Yeah, I think this is a harsh decision by the airlines because as it is, passengers are complaining about various services which are being, gradually being cut down by the airlines and also by the airport operators. And in that scenario, if they're going to be charged for all the kind of seats, I think that's not a fair deal.
Right, and this is something that I think, I believe IndiGo has already done to make up for higher costs, where they levy a fuel surcharge and have also increased overweight baggage fees a few months ago.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And my question actually here is from DGCA that airlines have been bullying the passenger whenever they want and the way they want, and there is no control. While when it comes to passenger facilities, I mean DGCA just mum. So who will ensure that there is a balance between the loading, the financial loading on the passengers vis-a-vis the facility being given to the passengers? I mean, there has to be some level playing.
Right, Mr. Saxena, thank you so much for putting that in perspective. IndiGo Airlines coming out and justifying this move. So we understand that IndiGo will now charge 800 rupees more for the web check-in of a first row seat, according to its revised charges and cancellations policy. A non-reclining seat in row 12, which is actually near the emergency exit, will cost an additional 600 rupees when selected online, while a middle seat in the last row will cost 100 rupees more. Now, the charges will be added even when the passenger selects the option of web check-in at the time of buying the ticket.